Hi, welcome to AnimeCons TV. I'm Patrick Delahanty, and in this week's episode, I'm going to cover some of the warning signs that you might watch out for when you're going to a convention, or at least when you're thinking about a convention. These are warning signs that will tell you if the convention might be having issues, or it might not be what you think it is. It's just a few things that you can look out for and hopefully avoid some problems. Now, there's always a chance a convention will be postponed or canceled, and these are some of the things that will give you an indication that it might not be going according to plan for their staff, and you might want to think twice about that convention. Now, it's not a guarantee it will be canceled or postponed, but if you see these, there's more of a likelihood than not, probably. So the first thing you want to see is if the convention has published their date and location. Never, under any circumstances, register for any convention if they haven't announced both the date and the location of the convention. There's some conventions I see that announce just the date and they say, oh, we're looking for a hotel in this town. No. Town's not good enough, or city. You need the specific location. Make sure that they have a hotel or convention center or some facility booked. If they don't have anything booked, then there's no guarantee it's going to be on that date or even in that town or going to happen. Once they've booked it and they have a confirmed date and location, then there's a much better chance this convention will take place. But there's no reason to ever give them any money if they haven't booked a confirmed date and location. So that's an absolute. Now, there's a difference in the locations. There's some conventions which are held in libraries. They're usually one-day things, very small. There's some that are in high schools. You'll find some in colleges, usually at their student union. And then there's the ones that are hotels, which is most anime conventions and a lot of other conventions too. And then there's the really large ones at convention centers. And so if there's a first-year convention and they're saying that they're going to be in a convention center, that's a big warning flag, because usually a first-year convention, they'll do it at least in a hotel before committing to a convention center, because convention centers are very, very expensive. And if they're doing it in a convention center, that means they must need a lot of money, which if their first year, how are they going to get that money? They don't know how many people are coming. Any first-year convention should really only plan for a few hundred attendees, unless it's like some professional organization that does this. Like Wizard World can go into a city and they'll know because they can advertise it in all their Wizard magazines. Read Expo does conventions with their C2E2 and New York Comic-Con and PAX, so that they can go into a city and they'll know that they've got a certain audience. But if there's some relatively smaller unknown group and they're going to a convention center, that's a big red flag. So watch out for that. Let's see, I've got a list here. I'll refer to this. Make sure that they have their own website. So if they're only on Facebook or only on Tumblr, this may not be a confirmed convention. They might say, oh yeah, we've got this hotel and or we've got this place. If they don't have an actual website, I don't know, it doesn't seem professional, and it's something that it could be risky. It could be just some guy that's going out saying, oh yeah, I'm going to do this con, everybody come, here, give me money. No, don't. You want it should at least look professional and be on its own website. And hopefully that website has all the information about the convention and it's kept up to date. If they've got out-of-date information, or they keep announcing things on Facebook but haven't updated their website, well, I mean, a couple days is fine, but if months go by and there's nothing on their website, there are clearly communications problems or organizational problems, and that's a red flag. On their website, do they have a logo? Does it use their own art, or do they just steal some art off of Gundam or Tenchi Muyo or Sailor Moon or something? Are they using licensed characters that they probably don't have the license for? Or do they have their own original characters, like Amy Boston? So yeah, if they're using licensed characters in their first year con, chances are they didn't ask for the license. They didn't actually license the characters. Hopefully they at least put the copyright, like copyright Funimation or something underneath. But when you look at their website, ignore any marketing speak. If it says, oh, the largest convention in the state, that's one thing, and that's pretty impressive. But if it says, we're the only convention that's for the fans, by the fans, that says nothing, because like most of the conventions out there are planned by fans. So that doesn't tell you anything. If it's like, oh, we're the largest convention in Lewiston, Auburn, Maine. Well, it's probably the only convention in that place. If it's like the largest convention in New York City, that's completely different. But if they're some small town, so-and-so's first convention, great. So what? So be careful of any marketing speak, any self-hype that they're doing. If they're doing a Kickstarter campaign, keep in mind Kickstarter has no guarantees. So if you're going to put money into that, there's no guarantee that the convention will actually happen, even if they meet their goal, or that you will ever get your money's worth or any rewards you get. I mean, this is true for any Kickstarter campaign. There could be this awesome new technical thing, and if you put money into it, there's no guarantee you'll actually get this technical thing. And there have been some Kickstarter scams. So this one might be legit, but something to watch out for. If the convention has run before, if it's not the first year, go look for reviews from last year. And those are very telling. More often than not, people have a good time. They'll post a lot of photos and say, oh, it was so fun. Look for the reviews where people don't like the convention. And not just ones like, oh, it sucked, I'm not going back. Find out why they think it sucked. If people are critical, hopefully they explain why the convention wasn't good and what they didn't like and how it can improve. And you can decide from those if they're at least fair in their review of if it's worth going back to and if the convention might improve over the years. Now, if there's an About page on their website, because they should have a website, look at the About page and see their history, who's running it, and what kind of experience they have. If there's a convention run by people that have no experience, that's usually a big warning flag. Because if you're going to staff a convention, if you're going to start a convention, you need staffing experience. It's crazy to try to start a convention and you've never staffed another con. It's just asking for trouble. If you're going to start a convention, my first word of advice always is to, well, first, don't. Second is staff another convention. And that'll give you a good look into the inner workings of how conventions run. And if you've staffed the convention, then you can have a much better idea of what it would take to run your own convention. So if these people have no experience, that's a red flag. For registration, make sure that they're using some legit registration service, not just asking you to send in money or checks. Because, I mean, you could think, oh, sending a check is safe. Yeah, it's safe for sending it through the mail, so the postman can't take it. But the convention could cash the check, then what do you do? If it's PayPal, even if you pay in advance, they take the money, and then a few weeks later, it's not like you can get a refund from that. So be careful about that. If they're using something like Eventbrite, which is very popular, especially for a lot of first-year conventions and smaller conventions, then that's pretty good. If they're asking you to just PayPal some money to an email address, no, don't do that, because they should be doing that. Let's see, make sure their prices are realistic. If it's a first-year convention, it's probably going to be pretty small, so like $35, that's fine. If they're asking $70 for a first-year convention, that's a little crazy. $100, forget it. I mean, it should be in line with going rates for other conventions of that size. And so check on that. Make sure they have realistic guests and events. They're not saying, oh, we're going to have William Shatner and Patrick Stewart. No, you're not. I mean, there's some guests that go to a lot of conventions, and maybe they're getting those, but if they're getting some guest in their first year who doesn't go to a lot of conventions, then maybe, I mean, it might happen, but it seems unlikely that some con out of the blue gets this guest that everybody else is trying to get. Events, I went to one con and they said that they were going to have a costume contest. They had no room to have a costume contest, so it was a little weird. They had it in the hallway and there were 3 entrants. I went to another one where they were going to have Cosplay Chess. They did not have a room big enough for Cosplay Chess, nor did they have enough cosplayers for Cosplay Chess, because to do Cosplay Chess you need 1 cosplayer for every spot. So there's 8 rows across and then 2 rows for each team. So there's 16, you need 32 cosplayers. There weren't 32 cosplayers at this con. So they actually had props for some of the pawns. It was really pathetic. I don't think they did it again next year. The con's still going on though, but it's a sci-fi con. They just didn't have a lot of cosplay. The promotion at other cons, if you see this convention promoting at other conventions, that's a good sign, because it means they're actively trying to get people to come to their convention. They're not just sitting at home assuming, oh, we're on the internet, we're listed on animecons.com, everybody's going to come. No, they got to get out there and promote. So if they're promoting, that's good. But what does their promotion look like? Do they only have flyers out there that look like just a block of text? Do they have just something like only a few? Or do they have stacks everywhere? Are they doing a massive attempt? Do they have a booth? How does the booth look? Is it just a table and some of the flyers? Or do they have this nice setup? Are they actually playing video games at the table? Or are they interacting with people, telling them about the convention? So just you can judge a lot by how their promotion goes. And if they have forums on their website, take a look. What's in there and how often do people post? I mean, forums are kind of a thing of the past, but if it's active, that's a good sign. If nobody's posted in there for months, including the staff, then there's probably not a lot of people interested in the con. And check their Facebook page. Is it only them posting, or are there a lot of other active participants coming in and asking questions and getting answers? When they post stuff, is it convention-related things that they post on their Facebook and Twitter? Or are they just tweeting out funny links and videos? Are they only posting on Facebook with the latest thing from BuzzFeed? Or is it actual guest announcements and other things to get people excited about the convention? How well do they use their social media? If they're just putting out spam with funny links and their opinion of Guardians of the Galaxy, I mean, good movie, but it's not appropriate to the convention. Do they have a problem with guests canceling? One issue that I see repeatedly at a lot of conventions that fail is that the guests will end up canceling, especially at the last minute. They may say, oh, due to work commitments or something, but maybe they just say, oh, they canceled. You gotta wonder, why did they cancel? I mean, every convention will have some guests cancel, and so there's nothing wrong with a couple guests dropping out because maybe there's a work issue or they get a new show. But if they have a large number dropping, okay, that might be an issue. Some conventions don't actually list who drops, but if we notice somebody was announced at a convention and then they've canceled or they're not on the list anymore, we list them on animecons.com. So you can check our site and see if there's guests who've canceled. And if there are, maybe check the guest's Facebook page or Twitter and see if they give a reason. Like they may say, oh, sorry, I can't go to Aka-Kon, I got a new job I gotta do, or new voice role, I got cast in a movie. Or maybe they say, yeah, they didn't buy me plane tickets, so I'm not going. Or they weren't able to pay my fee. Or maybe I've seen one case where the con didn't even invite the guest, but they listed them anyway. And so the poor guest had to go on her Facebook and say, yeah, I'm not a guest at that con, and I won't be now, thanks. So that was awkward. You can always sit it out your first year. Keep that in mind. You can wait and see how the convention does its first year. If you want to play it safe, maybe it'll do great. You can go the second year. And maybe it won't. And hey, you save yourself the time, money, and effort of that convention. Staff infighting. Look for that. check their Facebook, and if you see a lot of staff saying, no, that's not right, this is right, then maybe they've got some communications issues. You can also check on Twitter and see what people send to them. Just search Twitter for their Twitter username, and you'll see any tweets people send to them. Are they saying like, hey, how come you haven't gotten back to me? Or what's, any other issues? It's fun to do that for different companies and see what people are complaining about, like Best Buy or something, and, and see how well and how often the convention replies to them. And you can do that for, company replies to them, but you can do that for conventions too, and see like what complaints they're getting. Now, this is more after the convention, but it's good to look for the next year. And or I guess it could happen before, but if the staff is telling you, if they're explaining something and they omit some details, that's fine. If they lie, that's not good at all. Convention should never actually lie to the attendees. I mean, you might say, oh, sorry, we had to end the dance early because of medical condition. And that might be true. You don't have to go into details. You can omit that. You don't have to say who it was or anything. But you don't want to lie to people. Oh, sorry, we had to end the dance because we were having too much fun. I don't know. But you don't lie. And you definitely never throw the guests or attendees under the bus. So, I mean, if they have to leave early, you never say, oh, they're leaving early because they're a jerk and they refused to do their panel. I mean, you just take, sorry, things didn't work out and they had to leave. You don't blame the attendees for things. I mean, unless they're doing something really stupid like spray painting the walls, then you never blame the guests or attendees. Conventions should be able to say, sorry, we should have done this. And, you can always say, oh, we should have been more aware of this and been able to do this so it happened right. And don't say, oh, yeah, he messed up, so that's why this happened. So it's just a way to handle it. Anyway, those are just some things to look out for. And hopefully you will be able to avoid those awkward situations where you're at a convention and it's just a disaster. And so yeah, it's the best thing is just see what people are saying about it online. See if there's like a good reaction to it, and if a lot of people are interested in going, or is it like a ghost town? And you might wonder, am I going to be the only one there? Because I've been to a convention where I was just about the only one there, and it was really awkward. And so I just want to mention a few failed conventions that we can look back on and reflect on. One of the most epic ones was Aka-Kon in Vancouver in 2001. The convention had some money issues, and so there were the guests only had like $50 to go to dinner one night, and between all of them, and there were staff members or guests getting locked out of hotel rooms for non-payment. And then the Sunday of the convention, one of the guests actually spotted the con chair in the lobby of the hotel waiting for a cab to the airport. Yeah, that's pretty much a sign that you're giving up and you're getting out of Dodge. AnimeCons in Florida in 2004. This convention actually, this was the first one they had. The only one under the AnimeCons name because Aka-Kon gave them a cease and desist because it sounded like Otakon. But AnimeCons claimed they had 5,000 people, which clearly wasn't the case. RisingSun.net had photos, and it seemed like, 1,000 or so at tops. They later revised the number, saying they had 3,400. But they went on to have conventions in St. Louis, Atlanta, and Denver under the Unicon name, which, by the way, this AnimeCons and Unicon are not related to the current conventions using the AnimeCons and Unicon names. By the way, conventions, you may want to Google your convention's name before you pick it because they may have bad history. Anyway, the convention, eventually their website went down. They said their webmaster was on vacation, and there were a bunch of issues, and then they finally said, oh no, we're closed down. And yes, so they had some money issues, understaffing issues, and just general, only a few hundred people went to the last convention they had in Denver, and so the writing was on the wall for that one. Conno baca in 2005 in Toronto. This one actually had the hotel staff asking people to leave on Saturday evening. And so, again, another non-payment issue. Flanvention 2 in Burbank in 2005. This was going to be a Firefly convention in Serenity, and it had a few guests from the show booked, but the night before, they canceled. Not the guests, the convention canceled itself the night before. And so that meant a lot of people who were already there, they had already flown in, they were stuck in Burbank. And so what happened was the California Browncoats quickly, using some funds donated by Browncoats all across the country, organized the backup bash, or they called it B3, I guess, Browncoat backup bash. And it was at the hotel, and it was just a gathering of the fans. And when some of the guests of the convention heard about it, they showed up anyway and brought along some friends who weren't even guests of the convention. So there were a lot of people from Firefly there just hanging out with fans who, you know, they had nothing else to do. ComiCon, this is one of my personal favorites. ComiCon in 2007 in New Hampshire. This never took place, and it was announced 2 months before it was supposed to go live, before it was supposed to happen. And so it was submitted to animecons.com, and I was like, oh, another convention in New Hampshire, that'll be great. And I went to enter the info, and I look at their website, and it seems strangely familiar. And I start reading it, and it's like, wait, I wrote this. When I made the Anime Boston 2003 website, they had taken content from Anime Boston 2007's website and had put it on the Comic-Con website. And if they did a search and replace for the convention name, there was one place where they forgot to change the convention name, and I think another place where they forgot to change Massachusetts to New Hampshire. But other than that, it's completely plagiarized. The only page that they didn't take from Anime Boston was the Masquerade rules, because they weren't posted for that year yet. So they took them from AnimeCons instead. Eventually, there were a bunch of red flags for this convention. The chair was 17 years old, and her mom was helping her do it, apparently. They were promising childcare when somebody asked what they can do with their kids. They posted what it was costing them for the hotel, and a little math, you figure in their registration price, you'd realize that they had to make like 1,000 people at this tiny hotel before they break even. And it was just, had disaster written all over it, and it finally canceled like a month after they announced. They took down their website and everything and said, oh, it's not happening, and they were never heard from again. So that was weird. FedCon USA in Dallas in 2008. They canceled after the first panel on a Saturday. John Billingsley from Star Trek Enterprise, he played Phlox. He did a panel, and then an MC came on stage and said, yes, I'm sorry, you have to go, convention's over. And they offered refunds to people. I don't know if they actually got them or not, but the guests who were there were very gracious and offered to do signs or sign things as long as people wanted signings. But I mean, the first warning sign was that some of the guests didn't show up, and they had posted that because they didn't get tickets, or they didn't have airline tickets, so they didn't get to go there. And that was Aaron Douglas and James Callis, who are Tyrell and Baltar on Battlestar Galactica. So there were no shows because of that. So you know stuff is not going well when you get there and you find out guests haven't shown up because they didn't have airline tickets. Las Pegasus Unicon. This one's kind of legendary for the My Little Pony fans out there. This one just kind of imploded. It expected to be a big event. They had over 10 celebrities and a bunch of fan guests, but on Sunday they ran out of money, and so they kind of had to close. And because of it, some guests won't go to first-year conventions anymore. And from what I've been hearing from the My Little Pony community, a lot of people are worried about the first-year cons, that there might be another Las Pegasus Unicon where it's not prepared and it doesn't have the money. Most recently, we had Minorama this year in New York City. They postponed a week before their convention, they were a Minecraft convention not associated with Mojang, the company behind Minecraft. And so it left a lot of people, I mean, a week before, you can't cancel your reservations, so you're kind of stuck. And so people, I guess, went to New York and just enjoyed New York instead. But yeah, I don't know if there were any warning signs for this one, but their tweet announcing the postponement started with, "Please note, we are not a scam," which sounds exactly like a scam. And of course, the legendary DashCon. I think most of our viewers have heard about DashCon by now. It's supposed to be a Tumblr convention. I believe it was in the Chicago area. And they expected a ton of people. I mean, they apparently expected so many that they reserved a convention center for 2015, but they didn't get that many. And so the hotel asked for $20,000, but they had $3,000. So they had to get another $17,000 from the attendees. And a lot of it was collected in cash, so I don't know if they'll ever get that money back. And then they were going to have a Welcome to the Night Vale panel. And the panelists had to pay their own travel and hotel, and they had it. And unless they were paid before their panel, they weren't going to do their panel. And so fans were waiting in the room for 2 hours. And after 2 hours or so, the staff come in and say, "Sorry, the panel's canceled." Some people paid extra just to be there for that panel, or VIP sort of thing. And it's not happening. And they're like, "What?" And they didn't have the money. They're saying, "Oh, well, there's a problem with PayPal." Well, it takes time for PayPal funds to become available. I guess they didn't know that. And they say, "Oh, well, we can go to the bank. It's Saturday. Your bank is probably closed." But because they didn't have the Welcome to the Night Vale panel, they offered people 1 extra hour in the ball pit. And the ball pit's kind of a legend for failed conventions now, and especially for DashCon. And so those are some failed conventions in convention history. Probably my favorites to think back on. Of course, then there was TotemCon that I went to. That was terrible, so terrible. I've got a report for TotemCon here that you should probably read. It's so bad. But yeah, I want to hear your stories of failed conventions, or just things conventions did that were so bad. You can call our voicemail line at 762-ADEQUATE, that's 762-233-7828, or email us at podcast@animecons.tv. And look forward to seeing you back next week. Thanks.